As Ronald Reagan once said, and I quote, "When a business or an individual spends more than it makes, it goes bankrupt. When government does it, it sends you the bill, and the bill comes in two ways. It's higher taxes and inflation. And make no mistake about it, inflation is a tax, and it is not by accident." And after 8 years of this Liberal-NDP government, Canadians are left with that bill. When they got 40-year highs in inflation due to this government's doubling of the debt, supported by the NDP, that led to the most rapid interest rate hikes not seen in Canadian history. And it's only getting worse. What did that lead to? That also led to doubling of rents, doubling to mortgages, and now it takes 25 years just to save up for a down payment on a house, where just before this current Prime Minister, you could pay off a mortgage in 25 years. But that's what happens when you have a fiscally irresponsible Liberal NDP government. After 8 years, more and more is going towards shelter costs off of the hardworking Canadians' paychecks than ever before. In some cases now, because of this government's uncontrolled spending, it can be 60 to 80% off of Canadians' paychecks every single month just going into housing costs. That's why today we're seeing students that are living under bridges, people that have good-paying jobs having to live in their cars, and now more than ever they're going into food banks. In some cases, double-income earning families are going into food banks because they cannot afford the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating going up day by day because of this carbon tax scam. And now, at food banks, we see empty shelves and long lineups, and in fact, the lineups have gotten so bad, now the police have had to intervene to help hand out and control some of these lines. This is 8 years after the Liberal-NDP government. Many newcomers came to this country with the promise of the Canadian dream, that you could afford a home, you could afford to buy groceries, a safe future, but after 8 years of this Liberal-NDP government, life has never cost so much. Crime, chaos, disorder all over the streets, and the dream of home ownership is dead, especially for 9 out of 10 young people who will never be able to afford a home because of this government's out-of-control spending. Canadians are poorer because of this carbon tax scam. And in fact, the Governor of the Bank of Canada on multiple occasions proved that getting rid of this tax, axing the tax, would put a massive dent in the inflationary crisis that we see today. 0.6 off of the current number would be taken off overnight. What does that mean for hardworking, struggling Canadians today? It means that the Governor of the Bank of Canada could start lowering those interest rates sooner, which means interest rates for mortgages could go down and rents could go down. But with this continuous spending, this ideological obsession with making sure that they cause as much economic pain with no environmental gain by this Liberal-NDP government, Canadians don't see a hope for gas, groceries, and fuel prices to come down. And it's unfortunate, because as I said, there's 2 million Canadians going into food bank in a single month, and just this year alone, 1 million more will go in because of the cost of food. And this Liberal-NDP government will do nothing to help that and cause more pain on hardworking Canadians. Newcomers, 84% in fact are saying that they don't even know why they came here. That Canadian dream is a nightmare now to them. The hope of owning a home, the hope of having a safe future for their kids is gone. And on top of that, they can't afford groceries. There's moms that we hear about that are rationing their food, that are making sure their kids are fed but having to starve themselves. I've been to those food banks where I've seen this happen. And when we talk about no environmental gain and all economic pain, we don't have to look further than Alberta. This government says that you get more back in these phony rebates. In fact, in Alberta, on average, an Albertan family will pay $2,900 into this carbon tax scam. The rebate is $2,000. Mr. Speaker, the first time I ran for federal office, it was in 2019, and I remember going to a door. It was a single mom corner house with a for sale sign on her house. And I'll never forget that conversation. I went to the door, I told her who I was and what our plan was. And she told me to hang on. She ran and got her direct energy bill. And with tears in her eyes, she said, "I have a for sale sign on my house because I used to work in oil and gas. I'm a single mom. And because I got laid off of my job, I have to sell my house in order to feed my kids and be able to survive. And it was because of this anti-energy, anti-Alberta agenda of this Liberal-NDP government she was laid off of her job. But then she showed me her direct energy bill, and she asked me, what is this carbon tax? I've always heated my home. Why am I getting punished for doing something I've always done? I can barely feed my kids now, and they're just taking more and more money away from me. And that's exactly what this carbon tax scam is. It's more pain for everyday Canadians with no environmental gains. This Liberal-NDP government's own environmental department says that they don't even track how many emissions go down because they can't. It's a scam. It's been a scam all along. But common sense Conservatives will address this cost of living crisis by axing the tax, building the homes, fixing the budget, and stopping the crime. And in the meantime, we're going to continue to call on this ideologically obsessed, carbon tax obsessed government, Liberal-NDP government to axe the tax, scrap the scam, and spike the hike.